Hello, good afternoon to everyone. I'm immigration attorney Guillermo Hernandez, immigration attorney in San Antonio, Texas. We're the law firm of Vidal, Lied, Rodriguez, and Hanks. We have our offices here in San Antonio, and we also have offices in the Valley. We handle immigration cases that include everything from deportation defense, DACA, residency, citizenship, and investor visas and professional visas, employment-based visas. So we do all kinds of immigration cases, and we've started these Facebook Lives. Normally we have Facebook Live every Thursday, or every other Thursday at 6 o'clock in Spanish, and we're now starting to do some English content as well on the other Thursdays during kind of the lunch hour. And this is just kind of our way of keeping people informed of what's happening in immigration, the changes that are going on under this administration, what bills are pending. And that way people stay informed. And if you have questions, feel free to call our office. I believe the number is on the screen. The number to our office is 210-922-8541. We'll probably be on live today for about 30 minutes or so to answer questions, but also talk about some of the pending bills that are happening in Congress. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to make them in the comments. Or if you would like a consultation with our office, our number's on the screen, and we'd be glad to schedule you for a consultation so we can take a look at your immigration case and see if there's something we might be able to do. So today we're going to spend some time talking about DACA, the DREAM Act, and some of the bills that are pending with Congress. I have the opportunity today is what's called, I'm in an organization called the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and today is our National Day of Action, where about over 700 immigration attorneys are meeting with different congressional offices and Senate offices throughout the day to talk about immigration policy and what are some things we would like to see happen through Congress and through this administration. And so today I had the opportunity to meet with Senator Cornyn's office. This afternoon I'll meet with Senator Joaquin Castro's office. I believe Congressman Joaquin Castro, Senator Ted Cruz, and we have a couple of other meetings that we're gonna be talking about immigration policy. So it's kind of an exciting day. Normally we do this in person. It's different this year, obviously, because of COVID. So we're doing all of our meetings through Zoom. And one thing this morning that the Senator Cornyn's office, we met with his staff, let us know that they will actually be releasing an immigration bill today. So they couldn't let us know exactly what's in it because it hasn't been released, but we have some insider information that at least there's going to be an immigration bill put forward today by John Cornyn's office, and so we're interested to see what that entails. He did share with us that he is supportive of Dreamers, the DREAM Act, DACA, and TPS. And so we thought it would be good to take some time today to talk about those different categories of individuals and what's on the table. So maybe let's just start with DACA. Roberto, can you give us a rundown? What exists right now? What is DACA? Who does that cover? And kind of give us an idea of who we're talking about.
Of course, and before moving forward with the explanation of what DACA and the importance that DACA has right now, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Abogado Guillermo Hernandez for introducing all of us to a day of action right now. It's really important, and the conversations that are happening right now are really meaningful because they have a long-term impact on what's going on and what the future of different programs will have in the upcoming months. So for DACA is a program that was instituted under the Obama administration. The purpose of DACA was to give every person who can qualify for it deferred action. And what that means is that you don't really have a legal status here, but you won't be deported or sent back to your home country. This was mainly targeting people who came here as children, So people who came to the United States before they were 16 years old and got here before June 15 of 2007. If you entered the United States before June 15, 2007, and you were under 16 years old, most likely than not, you could qualify for that. Of course, there are two additional factors that will impact the fact if you qualify or not for DACA, and that'll be if you have criminal record and if you went to school and if you have like a high school diploma, right? Other than that, I think the ultimate goal for DACA and the upcoming immigration reform, if that happens, of course, is that the people who qualify for DACA or already have DACA can potentially pursue a path to citizenship, right?
Right. So I think, the interesting thing about the DREAM Act is it's been a proposal for a long time. The first version of the DREAM Act was introduced in 2001, so 20 years ago. And since then, there's been several versions of it introduced in Congress over time. The closest that it's come to passing was in 2010, when it fell short of just 5 votes needed. You need the 60 votes in the House to pass that legislation, and it fell short by 5. So it's something that has been introduced over the past 2 decades. It is something that at this point in history is a pretty popular bill. I think most people support the idea that if somebody came here as a child, right, it wasn't of their own volition or making, and they studied a lot. I've had several DACA students, DACA clients, right? And I refer to students, a lot of them are in high school or studying in college, but also they want to be in the military, but can't because of their immigration status. And so there's 2 current proposals, two versions of the DREAM Act pending right now in Congress. So there's the House bill, which is part of the DREAM and Promise Act that passed the House successfully a little over a month ago. And then there's the DREAM Act that's pending in the Senate, the DREAM Act of 2021, and that was introduced as a bipartisan effort by Senators Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham. And so there's some differences between the bills that I think are worth discussing, but both of them have this idea of the person that would be eligible would first have some kind of conditional lawful status. They would have to have obtained a high school degree or GED and studying in some kind of higher education, and have not been convicted of certain crimes. And then there's kind of a streamlined provision for individuals that have DACA that they would be able to take advantage of this in a streamlined process. And in order to remove those conditions and become a lawful permanent resident, it would have to be like a 2 or 3 year showing that you've studied at a higher education, institution of higher education, 2 years of military service, or have at least worked for a total of 3 years in the workforce. So there is this path to potential permanent residency and then citizenship. So I think some of the differences, that we can talk about is there's the Senate bill, which is the DREAM Act of 2021, and then there's the House, the bill that passed the House that was the DREAM and American Promise Act. And before I continue, for those who are joining, because I know some people come in and out of the live feed, we're talking about some updates about immigration proposals, specifically the DREAM Act and DACA. But if you do have questions as you're, about immigration updates, I invite you to make a question in the comments, or if you're interested in a consultation about services, feel free to call our office. So there's differences between the DREAM Act in the Senate and the DREAM Act that passed the House. So one of them is the age of arrival. In the Senate bill, it requires the person to have been 17 or younger
Mhm.
when they entered the United States. In the House bill that passed, that the age cap is 18 years or younger. So it's 1 year of difference, which could affect a significant
Yeah.
amount of people, right?
Mhm.
For physical presence, the DREAM Act that passed the House would require somebody to have been here since at least January 1st of this year.
Mhm.
Okay. The one that's proposed in the Senate, it requires at least 4 years of physical presence from the time the bill is enacted. So if the bill was passed tomorrow, it would require you to show at least 4 years from April.
2017.
So 2017 forward. So
Okay.
4 years of physical presence. And so that's a difference too. I mean, because you're talking about any minors that entered before January this year, or do you have to go back further to 4 years? Another difference is the disqualifying criminal history, right? So we know from DACA, you can't have a felony, right? Crime of moral turpitude, you can't have 3 or more misdemeanors. And then there are certain offenses like DWI, domestic violence that automatically disqualify you. So for DACA, we're talking about very clean individuals, people who have very minimal criminal history, if that. And I think, I don't know what your experience is, Roberto, but what would you say about the clients we see coming here?
I think, and I know this is a topic that we've been discussing constantly because for us, in our experience, 90% of the clients that we have here have a very clean, if you can put it in other words, perfect record. They don't have any criminal offense. At the most, traffic fines, minimal traffic fine for speeding, for they park in the wrong place or stuff like that. But other than that, I would say it's minimal the people who have a criminal history or a type of violation that could potentially affect their application for DACA.
Yeah. And I think I've only seen it in maybe 1 or 2 cases where something happened afterwards and DACA was then, it's a discretionary grant. The thing with DACA is you don't have a right to it. It's still discretionary. Immigration reviews all your documents to make sure you have the presence requirements, does the background checks, and if at some point you commit a violation that would disqualify you from DACA, it'll be taken away. And I've seen that happen, I think, in 2 cases where DACA was rescinded from these particular individuals. But I think you're right. I mean, other than that, I mean, every now and then we'll see like a minor pot offense or something very like a non-violent low-level offense that the person took care of, right? Did probation, went to classes, and has paid for that criminal offense and then moved on. But these, with DACA, with the DREAM Act, we're talking about people who have graduated high school or are in the process of graduating high school, and with the DREAM Act that's proposed on both sides, it's the idea that you go on and get some kind of higher education or military service or work, because we also need people in the workforce.
Of course.
There's a little bit of difference with regarding disqualifying criminal history. So both of them include disqualifies people who have aggravated felonies, crimes related to moral turpitude, or drug-related offense. The House bill includes any felony offense, 3 or more misdemeanors, or a crime of domestic violence. The Senate bill includes any crime with a maximum term of imprisonment of more than 1 year. So anything above a Class A misdemeanor, or 3 or more offenses regarding imprisonment for an aggregate of 90 days or more. And so there's a little bit of difference as far as what is disqualifying as far as criminal history. There are some exemptions, which we talked about: minor traffic offenses, minor marijuana-related possession, nonviolent civil disobedience, and incidents where there may have been a domestic violence charge, but that person was maybe the victim of domestic violence. So those are the difference And then also in the House bill, there's a review process. There's if the Department of Homeland Security determines that you don't qualify, there's a kind of an appeal secondary review process. And I think there was even like a district court permission process. So there's some additional review built into those adjudication processes.
And I think it should be worth talking about like a common issue that we encounter frequently, and not just for DACA, but Guillermo, can you talk a little bit more about the implications of having a DWI or a DUI for purposes of DACA?
Yeah, so for DACA, it's an automatic disqualification, right? So if you have driving under the influence or driving while intoxicated, you don't qualify, and we've never seen it pass through. We have seen some where you can plead, and it's a common thing, especially for first-time offenders, that you can plead to obstruction of highway. And obstruction of highway doesn't necessarily have any reference to alcohol or under the influence, so it's actually a pretty safe alternative with respect to immigration. And it still carries the same level of Class B misdemeanor.
Okay.
And so we've seen, especially here in Bexar County, that the prosecutors are more amenable to some kind of deferred adjudication or plea deal where somebody will plead to no contest to obstruction of highway, and then for immigration purposes, it won't affect their DACA.
Of course.
Obviously, we recommend that one, you don't drive under the influence, but two, in any of these situations where somebody might have an arrest and is being charged with some kind of crime, if you're worried that it might affect your immigration status or put you at risk for deportation, to have an immigration attorney look at what's going on and review it to determine how it may affect your status, because you may think it's something low level, but just because of the type of offense it is, it might trigger some kind of removability or deportability under the Immigration and Nationality Act. So those kind of things, I mean, there's a whole Supreme Court case about it, the Padilla case, that the Supreme Court found that there could be an effective assistance of counsel by the criminal attorney if they didn't properly advise of what potential immigration effects somebody might have in the criminal context. So,
of course. And then the criminal part of every case is complicated, but then when there's an intersection between immigration and criminal law, we need to be really careful, especially with people that are either beneficiaries of DACA or they are planning on applying for DACA. We've had cases in the past months of people who were unsure of the type of offense or violation that they had maybe 15 or 20 years ago, maybe in some other state. So what we're doing out of precaution is filing a FOIA or filing a request with the agency in charge of that charge to take a better look to the violation or offense and determine if that person will encounter any issues down the road. If we consider that it's safe for them to apply, then we just go ahead and apply and provide supporting documents to explain the reason of why this person was either convicted or was accused, and in that way we can actually satisfy whatever USCIS might request in the near future.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point in the sense that you don't want to go into any of these processes blind. You want to make sure that you've done your due diligence and gotten immigration anyway is going to request certified copies of whatever judgment documents, criminal documents for your criminal case. So if you have them already before you apply, that's less hassle later if they send a letter requesting more evidence. And I think, to that end too, what are some recommendations you have? Maybe I don't qualify for DACA, but it looks like I might qualify either any one of, either the DREAM Act in the Senate or the DREAM Act in the House. What would you recommend for me to get together, or what steps should I take?
Of course, and we normally, out of precaution for every single process we retain, we make sure that if people have proof of physical presence. That's one of the main things in every process, especially for DACA or DACA related, or for this new upcoming bill, if it passes. Um, we ask our clients to keep record of whatever proof they might have for their physical presence in the United States. So if you have bank statements, if you have any insurance policy under your name showing your date, showing date, name, and address, that should be good. We also recommend to file a Freedom of Information Act request, requesting your records of immigration to see what we might find there. And then the least one would be the criminal record. If you don't have criminal record, then it'll be just a matter of going to Burke County and request a copy of your record. And if there's nothing there, we can actually be sure that we won't find any issues along the way. Um, Anything else?
I think one, as far as evidence, one almost like perfect piece of evidence for, especially in a lot of DACA cases, is school records, right? Because someone comes to the United States and, school year is typically from August to May or June, and that can, the school records we see from the school districts have, absences and attendance. It has the years, it has addresses here in the United States, contacts. And so all those records, normally they'll come, with a seal of the school district, and it's great evidence in the sense that it shows actual physical presence attending school here in the United States. And then that also goes towards the educational requirement. If somebody is still in school or they've graduated and they have their diploma, that can give somebody physical presence, from when they were 3 or 4 years old and started school all the way to when they graduated, or if they're still attending. So I think that's always really good evidence. And then other than that, some of the more difficult cases we see of people who are eligible for DACA but are older, right? And it has been a while since they were in high school. And if you don't have a social security card or ID, it's very hard to get accounts and things in your name. And so we have to figure out and sometimes be creative of how can we show that this person still stayed in the United States, hasn't left the United States since they graduated high school. And sometimes there's bills, car insurance, bank statements, work history. Sometimes we have to get affidavits from affidavits from family and friends. Do they receive mail at a location here in the United States? Do they have children, right, who they've given birth to and have started school, and they're on the records of their children? So it really, those cases tend to get more difficult. And I think, we'll see that hopefully one of these, like I said, these are popular bills. I think they do have bipartisan support. Even the meeting I was in with Senator Cornyn's office this morning, they expressed the support of the Dreamers, right, of being behind some kind of Dream Act. Their office, the hiccup was they felt like the exceptions for criminal offenses was too lenient, which I don't necessarily think is the case. But these bills, we're gonna see them be negotiated, between the both parties, the Democrat and the Republican Party. We're gonna see them go back and forth between the House and the Senate until there's some kind of reconciliation and hopefully a successful vote. But we will need to, see that go through, 60 people in the Senate. So there will at least need to be 10 Republican senators to back the Dream Act. So, that's what Roberto mentioned that I'm doing some advocacy here, but for those who, everyone here is a constituent of somebody. There's somebody who represents you, regardless of your status, right? And, people who filled out the census are still in some way represented by these members of Congress and the Senate. And so, it's important for us to be active in that political process and I know it sounds like it may not make a difference, but but I've sat in meetings with some of these members, and they do have staff that reads the mail, that reads the email, that hears the phone calls, and so it is worth doing that, especially for these where there's something pending like a DREAM Act, to call your representatives and let them know you support something like these efforts.
I totally agree with you, Guillermo. And then a little bit back into the requirements and what most of our clients struggle, especially in the scenario where with people that are older now. One of the things that they've been struggling with is the piece of evidence that will help us prove their time of entry, because that's an essential and a key part in the process. If we can prove that this person entered the United States before June 15, 2007, and they were babies, it's hard to get that piece of evidence, right? Can you explain a little bit more of the evidence we try to help them out with in order to prove that? For example, the affidavits and the FOIAs we submit.
Yeah, so sometimes what we'll do is if they were a baby, did they get vaccines, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes the vacunas will show they were vaccinated here in Metro Health or at a clinic here in Texas or in the United States, and that's one way. Immigration will accept affidavits for specific events where there are gaps, and so sometimes we just try to be as creative as possible and corroborate that. And so we may have somebody, I'm thinking of a case right now where the person entered, but right before they were 16 and didn't go to school right away, and so but they worked at a family restaurant and they have pictures of themselves working at the family restaurant. And so what we've done is can we do public records search to look and verify that business did exist, that it was under the name of this person, and have that person write a specific declaration or affidavit that this person did work for me at the restaurant. Here's the picture showing them working. They worked here at this specific time. Or sometimes we have the affidavits connected to a specific event, like it was my sobrino's birthday party, and here's the invitation that we still have that was on that day, and I remember them being there, and we served carne guisada, and everybody had a great time, and whatever, to show that it's a declaration very specific to that event, and the more specific the testimony we can get, I think the less problem we have with immigration saying, well, this is not good evidence, right? And so when we have those gaps, we kind of have to be creative and figure out, can we use public records? Can we use affidavits, declarations, pictures, other things that can, when you look at it all together, it proves that somebody was here in the United States.
And we are aware that sometimes our clients or potential new clients get discouraged when we explain them that DACA will not give them legal status right away. DACA will not give them the green card. What DACA will give them is a deferred action, right? And maybe that's not the right thing or the thing that our clients want, but in the long term and down the road, especially for those proposals and reforms, that could make a difference. So we've been pushing really hard in the past 2 or 3 months, right when DACA was reinstated, where it was before Trump. So that people can qualify for that, apply right now. So if you think that you qualify for DACA, make sure to give us a call, and we'll make sure that your case is screened properly to assess if you qualify for DACA.
And I think some of the important benefits for DACA are, that we sometimes forget to mention is now that it's back in its full glory of a program, is the advanced parole, because if you think about somebody who's been here since they were young, has grown here in the United States, we have a lot of DACA clients who have met their significant other and started families and have children of their own businesses, things like that, but maybe have a different way of becoming a resident of the United States because they married a U.S. citizen. And so this is going to be a topic for another time, but the whole idea of how do you become a resident in the United States, or what determines when you have to leave, but to become a resident here, you have to have at least had some kind of lawful entry or parole. And one benefit of DACA is that you can get advanced parole for emergency reasons, for school, or for work. And if you can do that and get an inspection or admission or parole document coming back into the United States, that opens the door to possibly adjusting and becoming a legal permanent resident if somebody, has a spouse that can petition for them. So that's another, positive benefit for DACA that I think is important to mention.
Of course.
So I think, that was the big thing we kind of wanted to talk about today. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're doing these videos every week in English and Spanish, alternating, but just to kind of keep our clients, the community updated of what's going on in immigration, what's changing, what can we expect. We have seen a lot of movement over the past 3 months under this administration, and hopefully we'll see more positive movement and favorable movement for our clients. As far as general updates, the immigration court here in San Antonio is closed through May 15th, I believe. And there's some rumors that it may open actually start next month for non-detained hearings. And so it'll be exciting to maybe get back into court again.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we have for today. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Questions.
So like I said, we have offices in San Antonio. We have offices in the Valley. We do have questions, or family members with questions about immigration. Our staff is all bilingual. And we'd be glad to evaluate your case and see if there's something we can do to help. But I don't have anything else. I don't know if you do.
No, I think that's pretty much everything. Thank you, everyone that was on the live. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.